Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sports Card Madness brought to you by DraftKings and their new app, Pick Six. Sign up with code Madness6 for up to $50 in free credits. This is LZ. I am here with Nick, and today on the show, we have a special guest. We have attorney Matt Litt of Litt Law LLC, who specializes in gambling. And he actually was referred to us by a friend who's listening to the show. And we were kind of getting into gambling and breaking. And then Matt reached out. He's like, I got to talk to you guys. We got to dive into some of this. So we're going to cover a lot today. We're going to be asking Matt's thoughts on certainly breaking and bounties and the legality of bounties. I know Nick and I want to get into, like, if you get screwed in a break, like, how can we protect ourselves? And Matt's going to help with that. And then he's going to give us his take on Fanatics and Panini and everything they're dealing with, and much, much more. So Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Larry. I appreciate it. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, it's cool to have a lawyer on, man. This is nice. We are going to harass you for the next 30 or 40 minutes, man.
Yes.
It's going to be awesome because
our audience, Nick, our audience is ready to harass them too, because the audience gave you a lot of questions over the past couple of days.
Tons of questions, like some of the most I've ever received. I've already had 2 people that want your information. I have barely even mentioned that we're doing this yet. So this is going to be awesome. Hopefully we ask you all the things that the audience wanted to get across, but it's going to clarify some things, because people like you are. I mean, I tried to look it up. I couldn't find. I'm glad you found us, because I couldn't find you. It's awesome.
Yeah, there's not a lot of lawyers in this space for sure. So yeah, glad to be on.
Yeah, so let's get into that, because that is my first question, and that will kind of tee everything up for the day. Like, let's add some credibility to you, Matt. Like, tell us, like, who you are. And I want to know, like, how you got into your focus being gambling as well. So tell us about you.
Yeah, so I'm an attorney in New York and New Jersey. I've been an attorney for about 20 years, and I got into gambling law. I mean, basically, manipulation, I think, is the key word about that, and about, what we're going to be talking about with breaks. I living in New Jersey, we were the first state to legalize gambling, and it was wild, and you saw pretty quickly how addictive it could be and how dangerous it was. And a lot of people were getting in, and were getting in deeper through manipulation. And I think it's one thing if you get in of your own free will. I think when there's manipulation involved, it was a different thing. And I jumped in to try to help gambling addicts and their families to take a stand and try to, in a lot of cases, recover their lives, get their lives back.
That's really good. That's helpful, because we're always making fun of people. I mean, it really is like, I see these stories where people blow 200 grand or 100 grand that they don't have. And it's easy for us to crap all over them, but it's like a mental disorder almost. It's an addiction. And all of us have had some kind of addiction to something in our lives. So it's cool that it sounds like you actually care enough to try to make a difference. And we are going to hopefully parlay that into the sports card world, because we need your help, my friend. There's some shady stuff.
I want to focus on the manipulation side, because I feel like every time me and Nick bring up this topic, like, is this legal? Is this thing okay? Are people getting screwed here? I think a lot of it has to do with manipulation, Nick. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. So Matt, before you chime in, I'll weave this into a question for you, but just so you can understand the context, what we mean by manipulation is sort of like pump and dump. Okay. So you're holding $1 million of a certain type of card. And so you brag about the card, and you tell everybody how awesome the cards you're pulling from this set are. And you spin and spin and spin till the prices go up, until you sell, and you have manipulated the market. But it's not a security according to the 1934 Securities Act, which I got into a little bit, but I'm not an attorney. So let's go to an attorney for some of these questions. The first one I got is it's really like top of mind for me. I've been kind of going at it with David Adams. So David Adams is a massive wax seller. Wax is just unopened cards. They sell tens of millions of dollars of it globally. not just America. And they're selling it online. They're selling it in physical stores, and they are famous for bounties. So every big set that comes out, they will announce an absurd bounty for a specific card. It could be something like a Babe Ruth Superfractor, which essentially means it's a one-of-a-kind card with Babe Ruth on it. It's shiny. He played like 100 years ago, but won't go there. So they'll do something like that, and they'll say, "Here's 50 grand to whoever pulls this card," and they announce it like as the set drops. And then when that set's done, they'll do it with another one, and the one that brought you to us was the Bedard bounty, where they offered $1 million, and it didn't necessarily have a clear expiration on it. And then they said, "Sorry, bounty's off," and everybody's pissed because they spent all this money on wax that cost more because the bounty was out there, and now the wax is worth less, and everybody's holding the bag except David Adams and Upper Deck, who makes the cards. So I've been diving into this scenario, but what do you think about this whole thing?
Yeah, so there were two things that I saw that caused me to reach out to you, Nick. And before I get into them, just a real quick disclaimer that nothing I'm giving is legal advice. Nothing I'm saying is fact. I'm just giving my opinion on this. Yeah. So two things that concerned me that caused me to reach out to you, Nick. So the first one is that it appeared to me, and still does appear to me, that what you're referring to with $1 million bounty on the Bedard is gambling. It's no different than a lotto ticket. So that what was going on here is an unlicensed casino. Because when you're going into the break hoping to either you pull a Bedard or you don't, that is a game of chance. As far as I'm concerned, you're risking something of value on a game of chance. And that is the definition of gambling. So that was problem number one. Now, I was not aware of the Bedard bounty until after it was pulled. So when I was watching your videos on it being pulled, I don't have a background in finance or SEC, so I came at this a slightly different way, which is that if they always intended to pull it, or if there was any manipulation of any kind, that's a deceptive act or practice in the conduct of a business, which is a violation of New York law. So Section 349, the deceptive acts and practices, is basically a catch-all. So it prohibits a business from doing anything that's a deceptive act or practice in the conduct of their business. So if people were purchasing either packs or boxes or a slot in a break as a result of a manipulated bounty, as far as I'm concerned, that's textbook Section 349.
And David Adams is located in New York, so they have to abide by New York law. They're up in Buffalo, so that's interesting. When you say that, so how would somebody, they're really pissed about this. Let's say they spent 100 grand on wax and they're just bullshit that this happened.
Stuck with all these junk cards now.
Would they try to, would this be a class action type of thing? Or would this be something where you go after them and you charge the client like you normally would and go after them? What could people do if they were pissed about this with David Adams and they actually want to take legal action?
Yeah, so if they're pissed about it and they see it the same way I do, call me, and this would be appropriate in my opinion for a class action, because everybody is suffering the same harm. Now there's different proportions, obviously. Some people bought one slot, some people bought, like you said, $100,000. So there's different damages. But in my opinion, this is ripe for a class action.
Wow, crazy. All right, yeah. It's pretty heavy stuff. I'm glad that you said that. I mean, so this game of chance thing. So basically, that I know you said one thing offline to me, and then I'll let LZ ask his question next. You said that it changes if they give you a base card. So then it's no longer a binary outcome like you get this or nothing. As long as they ship you something of value, that changes the rules, right?
Yeah. So this is all on a sliding scale. So whether or not this is a game of chance, I think it's so difficult to say something is or isn't. I think on the Bedard bounty, it's pretty clear that it is. But I think most things are going to be in a grayer area. So the question is, what are you what are you paying for? If all you're paying for is a chance to hit $1 million card, as far as I'm concerned, that's illegal gambling. But if you're paying for an experience, or let's say you're paying for, like, in my opinion, if you're breaking vintage wax, well, you're paying at least in part for the experience, because you can't afford a pack of 1962 Tops on your own. So you're getting together with 10 people who you may not know, but you're splitting the cost of it. So there, you're not just paying for a chance. So to me, when a card isn't shipped, that doesn't necessarily make it illegal, but it certainly harms their argument that they're providing anything of value if you don't get a hit.
Yeah.
So I think if you're shipping the base card that said, hey, you didn't get the big one, but you still received something of value. So I think on the sliding scale that moves a little bit.
And by the way, only like
the
half of breakers even bother shipping those. So
I want to clarify one thing here, because Nick started off by asking about David Adams just selling wax, not doing breaks, just selling boxes of cards and offering this bounty. And somebody buys $100,000 worth of these cards and they bring them home and they're sitting at their kitchen table and they're opening up these packs. And yeah, they get, I don't know, they get a bunch of other great players in the NHL, but they don't hit the Connor Bedard. Time goes by. David Adams cancels that bounty. So that, to like, I want to understand it, because I am getting cards. Like, I bought boxes of cards, but now you're you're taking away this bounty and this Connor Bedard card, and I just wasted $100,000. So I don't want to talk about breaking right now. Specifically, me opening at the kitchen table. Do you still think that is still illegal?
So a couple of kind of rhetorical questions. Number one, why did you buy the box? So let's use the but-for test. That's something we use in the law, but-for. If you would not have bought that box but for the Bedard bounty, then yes, I believe that's still illegal. But then we cross over to the Section 349 side of it, the deceptive acts and practices, even if there's just a diminution in the value. So let's say you paid $400 for the box and you would have only paid $200 without the bounty. That's still a violation. That's still a violation of Section 349, in my opinion.
Okay. All right.
I'm glad we got you on, man. This is like really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, that is helpful. All right. Yeah. So now let's go back to the breaking side of it. With Nick's example, there are definitely some breaks that you are trying to hit the Luka Doncic card, or you're trying to hit the Patrick Mahomes rookie card. And if those don't hit, or if, let's say, the top 20 cards in the set don't hit, some breakers will just be like, all right, I'm not going to waste my time and the money to send you all these base cards that were part of this box. So you don't get anything. So you're saying that could also be illegal then, if they're not sending you the base cards?
I think on the sliding scale, you're getting into a more dangerous area as a breaker, because you're conceding that they didn't receive anything of value, which brings it closer to, again, that term, contest of chance.
Okay. All right.
So
all right.
Think about it like a game of blackjack, right? In blackjack, either you win or you lose. There is no in between. So the closer a break is to a game of blackjack where you win or you lose, the more dangerous things are getting for the breaking company. Whereas the more you're receiving something of value, I think that's safer for the breaking company.
The whole hobby's headed this way, LZ. It's like it's binary now. It's either the chase card or trash. All right. Maybe the chase card and 10 your cards and then trash. And so,
any downtown card, any kaboom, right? We're talking. They're Yeah.
This is
But-
mind blowing. So as the whole hobby moves towards this gambling and towards these binary outcomes of chase cards and polarizing, they don't realize that they are initiating gambling and likely, as I've predicted, regulation and class action lawsuits.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So I think that one of the more obvious examples, and I say it's obvious, but you might school me here on this one, Matt. You see this at actual card shows and you see it on breaks, and it's something called spin the wheel. At a card show, like they'll have a wheel similar to they'll have in Vegas, or they'll have on The Price is Right. And for $10, $20, $100, you spin a wheel and you have the chance of getting the Mahomes rookie card, or you have a much better chance of getting a candy bar. And Nick's not even joking. Like, you could win.
My son won a candy bar.
You could win a Snickers candy bar. Like, and they do it virtually too. You see them on breaks, and it's obviously they're not giving away candy bars in that perspective. But is that gambling?
It's definitely getting closer to an area that I would be fearful of. I mean, so it sounds like in those situations, what they're doing is they're kind of giving lip service to the idea of giving something of value. But there comes a point where that lip service is so absurd that it can't be, we can't look at it with a straight face anymore. And when you're talking about a Patrick Mahomes, by the way, I'm a Bills fan, so I'm saying Patrick Mahomes a little bit of, not a whole lot of love, but
me and Nick are Bills fans this weekend too.
Yeah.
So
go Bills. So when you're talking about a Patrick Mahomes rookie or a candy bar, I mean, it's really hard to argue with a straight face.
Seriously.
But that's not a contest of chance.
Right.
So
yeah.
that's a really good point you're clarifying for me. It's not just like, okay, you get the Tom Brady rookie or a candy bar. It's actually like you're basically getting Tom Brady rookie or nothing, because the variation is so wide,
so broad, wide. Yes,
it's such a oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so Matt, I got a question about sweepstakes. Okay, we've had that in America for 100 years. You send in cereal tops. You're entered in, you send in Cracker Jack stuff, like whatever, sweepstakes. They're cool. And even as a kid in the 80s, right? Like I would send away stuff through, sports cards for different things. So how have these laws evolved over the years? Because I'm under the impression that Fanatics and Topps are still operating under sweepstakes laws. So I just wanted to understand like how that's changed over time. And
yeah, and sweepstakes law isn't my area of expertise, but I think the bottom line is that it really hasn't evolved. I mean, it has.
Oh.
It hasn't caught up with the digital age, just like so much of this. So you're trying to apply, prehistoric law to a completely new game. But the name of the game in sweepstakes has always been purchase not required. That's how these companies have always gotten away from it, is if you can write in and request an entry, then they were in compliance with the law. And I'm pretty sure, I can't write in and request an entry to a David Adams break for free.
But you can, yeah. And the funny thing is, Matt, we did an entire 2 episodes about this. Fanatics does cover themselves with this, and you can actually send an index card in. It costs you a stamp, and you could get entered in. So they sell $10,000 boxes with chase cards in them, and you could buy a box and get a chase card. But there's one other way to do it for free. If you send that postcard in by a certain date, you are entered in for a chance at one of those chase cards. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, and that's how they cover themselves, and that's how they make sure that they're not running essentially a lottery, is that you don't have to purchase their product to get a chance at the prize. And that's the problem, we're running into now on the bounty, where you don't have that.
Okay. All right, let's go back to breaking. Nick and myself have talked recently around just a lot of shenanigans that are happening in breaking. We see breakers trying to sell spots for a certain value, right? So they're selling spots and they're hoping to get $300 per spot. And, the first couple are going well, but then all of a sudden the session dies out and they're selling spots for only $100. And they'll just like in the middle of a break, just be like, I'm sorry, guys, we're done with this. I'm not going to lose money on this box. Like I'm canceling the whole break. So
they refund the money when they do that.
We've seen that example. We've also seen extremes where breakers have pulled like a $50,000 card and then they just get up and shut the break off and they disappear. And they take
not just the break. They shut everything off.
They take the card with them, right? Socially, they're gone. So in those scenarios, if I'm somebody who's buying into a break, so let's start with I didn't buy that spot for $300. I waited it out and I got it for $100, and then they cancel it. Like, what action can I take? Is there anything I can do?
I don't know that there is in that situation. If they're refunding your money and you're being made whole, I don't think so. I think because I think in that circumstance, the value of the break has been established by the market. So the value of that slot was $100.
Right.
So if you're getting that money back, I think you're whole. I don't see any issue there.
Okay, that's a good point. All right.
Yeah, so it's just bad form, but it's not illegal.
Yeah,
bad form. It sounds like terrible business practice, but yeah, I don't see it as being illegal. Yeah.
Right. All right. What about on the other side, right? So we have big platforms. I mean, we've already mentioned Fanatics. They have a platform, Fanatics Live. We have Whatnot. Some of these are still going on eBay. There's a few other platforms that are doing this as well. Some breaker pulls the $50,000 card and just ghosts everybody. What actions can I take in that respect?
Yeah, so I think legally you certainly have a leg to stand on. I mean, if you have a right to that card, so now you're not whole anymore because you paid for the right to that card, and that's being taken away from you. Practically, it's probably a little more difficult to hunt that breaker down, but certainly if you can, you'd be protected under the law. You had an agreement, whether it was written or whether it was oral or even whether it was just implied. I mean, if you have an agreement and they broke the agreement and now you're harmed because of it, they're absolutely obligated to make you whole.
Yeah. All right. So we should be going after the platform company, like the Whatnots, those platforms, because obviously we can't go after the breaker. The breaker's disappeared. So would we go directly to the platform?
That's tough. I mean,
yeah,
that's tough unless you can prove that the platform had something to do with it. So unless you knew that the platform was complicit or that they were somehow benefiting from the scam, it would be tough. And yeah, you're right. That would definitely be the preferable way to go because they have an address and they have, I could serve them with a complaint. It would be harder to find the breaker, but the breaker is probably the one that really has the liability there.
Okay. All right.
Interesting. So, man, so many questions for you. The regulation in breaking is fascinating to me. I like to think of the future in 5 or 10 year chunks of time. I would say, do you think regulation is coming to breaking within the next 5 years? And what could that look like?
Yeah, so, I see it both ways because it's clear to me that regulation is badly needed in the industry. But at the same time, you have to look at it politically. And, the politicians aren't going to act unless there's a benefit to them. And it's hard to imagine a politician, running for re-election based on regulating the breaking industry. Yeah. So I think where this ultimately
But underage gambling, maybe.
Yeah, underage gambling, absolutely. And I think maybe that's where you see this change is the definition of gambling perhaps expanding, whether it's in the legislature or whether it's in the courts, so that it's clearer that it encompasses breaking, so that breaking companies would be subject to the same, not the same casino regulations, but they would be subject to the same rules regarding underage participants and other schemes.
I've been saying this for a while. It's like nobody knows about this. Like, ask my wife, like she's gonna have no idea this is going on. It's not a big thing. They're not talking about it on ESPN yet. However, someone somewhere is going to get their credit card whomped by like a 12-year-old on one of these breaks for like 100 grand, and they're not going to be able to get that money back, and that is going to hit the news. And this is just my prediction. I'm not a lawyer. I think within 2 years, we will have an age restriction in some state on sports card breaking. We'll see. I could be wrong.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I think things like the Bedard bounty is what's going to stimulate it, because you're right. This is all under the radar. We're talking about $1 million bounty that gets more people's attention. And if you have, the wrong outcome of the wrong person who, happens to be in Congress and suddenly becomes aware of this, I don't know, man, $1 million bounty is it's for people who don't understand breaking. It's easy to wrap your head around and say, what the hell?
They gave a bounty. The bounty's gone. That's easy to understand. I think I'm starting to get this. It's more like, what can the politicians understand and act on? It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Matt, I actually want to. Do you mind if I tell you a story? I have a story here. So
is it a ghost story this time, LZ? I don't want to hear any more of those.
I don't know. I'd have to think. I probably do have another ghost story, but so when Nick said something about underage, it triggered a story that I had growing up. Do both of you remember? Like, Matt, you seem like you're similar age to us. Do you guys remember the BMG and the Columbia House deals where it was like you get 10 DVDs for a penny? Do you guys remember 100%. That?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I had a very interesting math teacher in high school, and I'm like probably 16. And he tells us, we have like a whole class around this, stands up in front of the class, and he says, do you guys do these BMG and Columbia House things? And we're all like, oh yeah, like we're getting CDs all the time. And he goes, all right, this is what I want you to do. Goes, I want you to sign up for it tonight. I want you to get your 10 free DVDs. And then I want you to ghost those companies and not pay them a dime, because you are all minors and there's nothing they can do and they can't go after you.
Yep.
So it triggered, like, are there any loopholes for minors? Like, if a minor jumps to a break and there's like some sort of like gambling going on.
Well, what about a 12-year-old operating his own illegal break?
Or 12-year-old operating his own break. Like, I'm just thinking, like, not to like, come up with like shady things to do, but like if this is going on and there isn't regulation and there isn't checks and balances, like, put a 12-year-old go in and like take advantage of this and be like, all right, I'm going to enter a break and you guys can all pound sand. I'm not paying you a dime. Right? Like, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, listen, I mean, if you're a minor, I mean, you can't contract. So, the only problem is the breakers require the money first before you get before the break. But yeah, no, absolutely. A minor, listen, I don't think minors should be involved in this because I do think so much of it's gambling. But if they do, they can't be held to the.
This is how I would do this. I would get a bunch of flawless cases.
Of course you have an idea.
I wouldn't do my son. That's too direct to me. I get like one of my son's friends who's really charismatic. We start up a channel on Whatnot on like a Sunday night. We rip through like 50 grand of flawless or something like that. Just keep all the cards. Bye everybody. Bye everybody.
That's terrible.
I'm not gonna do that.
No, we're not gonna do it. It's
we
really
need to illustrate the problem.
Yeah, and I can already imagine the audience being like, "Oh, you guys say that this is terrible, and here you are coming up with ideas." No, we're just bringing up points because this is why there needs to be regulation. This is why there needs to be checks and balances, because some smart kid is going to do this.
Oh yeah, God, yeah.
Absolutely.
It might actually be my son.
yeah. I could picture. Yes, I could definitely picture your son doing it. Definitely. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yep.
So what? I have another question on almost like protection. So if you were Fanatics right now, operating a breaking platform, or if you are Backyard Breaks, really big breaker, done a ton of revenue. What are some things you can do to legally protect yourselves that you like may not be seeing,
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, first thing that comes to mind is there is no way to absolutely protect yourself because of some of the things we've already talked about, because things are going the way of, the hits. It's tough. I think the best advice I would give them, and I'm not in the business of giving them advice, but the best thing I would think of is that instead of hyping up the value of the hits, hype up the value of the set. I think that's the safest way to do it, so that people are buying into the set, not a particular card.
Genius.
Yes.
That is genius.
Yes.
Oh man. So and right. Everything else is really valuable, we promise.
This set is worth $10 million.
Yeah, it is. I swear. This is not trash that I'm gonna throw in the wastebasket right behind me.
Yeah.
It's actually worth money.
You have to be right. You have to be able to do it legitimately. You can't hype up, the value of a Nestle Crunch bar against the Patrick Mahomes rookie. But
don't you crap on those Nestle Crunch bars, man.
But I think that's what it is taking it away from a contest of chance and moving it toward the experience, so that people are paying for the experience.
Wow,
so let's say, for example, and I understand this is all online, so this is not something that would ever happen, but let's say in addition to a spot in a break, or let's say the breaks are occurring in a fancy restaurant. So some of your money is going to eat a nice meal and to spend time with people. And by the way, we're also doing a break at the same time. Now it's more about the experience. And I understand that's not where this industry is going, but I think that's the best way to protect yourself, is move it away from a contest of chance and from a focus on a binary win or lose outcome, and look more at the experience. And I think you do that by looking at the value of the set.
I like it. I like it. All right. We're going to pivot to something that's, this is very interesting, because we had somebody on who does consignment. His name's Rick Probstein. He owns Probstein Auctions. And we talked about consigning things. So do you understand that process? I have a valuable card. I don't want to deal with a private sale myself. I don't want to deal with eBay. I give it to Sotheby's, et cetera, right? We've had some issues where, I have this card and I think it's worth 50 grand. What's the first thing I'm going to ask that auction rep? What do you think it will go for? Right? And the auction, what Rick Probstein says is that he doesn't ever say that, because he could be legally obligated and probably lose in court if he actually gave a quote. So he says, I don't know, whatever, we'll see what circumstances bring. So if you are thinking of consigning anywhere like Golden Auctions or Probstein or Sotheby's or whatever, what are some things that you should think about or ask?
Yeah, so it's really, and this is really with any contract, is put your expectations in writing. That's really the answer to all of it. So whatever may be important to you in that transaction, and whatever that may be, whether it's cost, whether it's time, whether it's risk, whatever it may be, make sure that all of your expectations are in writing in the contract. I think that's the best way. So if you need if you need Probstein to give you a particular value, make sure it's in the contract. And if it's not, it doesn't exist. And you can either continue with the transaction or not, but at least you're doing it intelligently. Right. I think what happens so often in these things is people, and I'm as guilty of it as anyone, people are so eager to enter into the transaction, they don't read the contract and they don't know what's in it, and then they wind up being frustrated and disappointed. So
there's an awesome South Park episode about this, about accepting terms and conditions. If nobody's seen that, please go watch that immediately. You haven't seen that, LZ?
No, I haven't.
Oh my goodness. Basically, the premise is one of the South Park kids signed up to Apple, and you always hit agree because it's 5 pages long, and they agreed to some bad stuff. So make sure. So it's good advice. LZ and I, we auction things, we could sign things, and we docu-sign a contract. What do I read? Half of that? A quarter of that? Should probably read it. Like, make sure I'm happy with the terms.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
And most people don't. I don't. I mean, I'll tell you all day that you should do it. But if I'm sitting at a car dealership, if I'm sitting at a car dealership leasing a car, am I really sitting there for an hour and a half reading all 50 pages? No one does. No one does. So that's why I say, really, really, I guess the best advice I can give, realistic advice, practical advice, is highlight what's important to you and make sure that's in the terms and conditions or the contract. Make sure those expectations are explicit.
All right, Matt. So that is definitely more formal. If you're going to an auction house, right? They're going to have drawn up contracts. Maybe you actually sit down with them face to face. What about these private sales that we all do in the hobby? They could either be online through Instagram. Hey, someone posts a card. Hey, I'm asking $500 for it. I DM the person. Hey, I'll take it for 500. Then the card comes back to me and I figure out that it's counterfeit. I go back to the seller. I'm like, WTF? Like, this is counterfeit. Like, I want my money back. And they're ghosting me, or they're like, no, you were fine with this earlier. We've seen those situations. Also seen in person the same things happen, right? You go to a card show, you buy them that way. What suggestions do you have, I guess, for both parties when it comes to a deal like that, where it isn't as formal? How can we cover ourselves?
Yeah, it's so hard without that formality, but I think it's at the end of the day, it's the same advice, which is
Okay.
make your expectations explicit. So you can certainly, in a DM or in an email, make your expectations explicit. Like, hey, it's my I'm paying $500 for this card with the expectation that it's in condition, PSA 8 or higher. Or something along those lines. Make it explicit what you're expecting. Now, if you're talking about something that's counterfeit, that's flat out illegal. So you don't have to agree to that ahead of time. That's flat out illegal, and you'd be entitled to your money back. The difficulty is, like you said, when someone ghosts you, you might be entitled to money back,
right.
but if you can't
That's
find
good.
them,
It's good advice. I do know some friends that draw up pretty substantial contracts, and if it's a high end card, there's just basic stuff like fly there, don't do that through the mail, have a contract, have a witness to the contract, stuff like that. So thank you for that. I've got one more question for you. Then LZ is going to close this down. We always ask a random question, so he's got one for both of us. Has nothing to do with sports cards, I promise.
No, it doesn't.
I can't wait. It's gonna stress me out. But all right, Matt. So one of the biggest headlines in our space right now is kind of Fanatics versus Panini. I won't bore you with the details, but essentially Panini was a monopoly. They had all the licenses for cards. Fanatics has now taken those licenses, and that will kick in like a year, give or take. There's lawsuits and counter lawsuits, and there's poaching team members and having them move to certain states. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Do you have a prediction on how this is going to play out?
I don't have a prediction on it, but I'm fascinated to see how it plans out. It's a really interesting set of facts and the kind of thing that only comes along in this space. I mean, once every generation. So I'm actually really interested to see what happens.
What did Clubber Lang say in Rocky 3? What's the prediction for this fight? Pain. I think it's going to be pain.
That's right.
I think Fanatics wins, and there will be pain. All right.
Yes. All right. Let's get to the random question of the day, guys.
Ugh.
All right. Here we go.
We should let the guests go last.
Don't be nervous. Well, I'll give you. I'll let Matt have the option.
Right.
He can either go first or he can go last.
I'll go first. This way I could pass it back to Nick if I don't like it.
Okay.
Oh, clever.
All right. So there have been a lot of great movies that have been focused on the legal system or a big legal case or, a charismatic attorney. What is your favorite movie that focuses on the legal world?
A Few Good Men, no question. No question, A Few Good Men.
Ah, you took my number one, Matt. All right. All right. Okay.
Wow. That was mine too. All right. Awesome. All right. So this movie is a little old. I've taken a few law classes in college and high school, and one of my awesome teachers recommended 12 Angry Men or 12 Good Men.
12 Angry Men.
12 Angry Men. And it's just about, a case changing from one person disagreeing and, the other 11 feeling.
Yeah, the jury pool, right?
Exactly. And then well, actually, spoiler alert for something that's like 100 years old. Spoiler alert. It flips the other way and goes in the other direction for the findings.
There's actually, I think it's a HBO Max show that just came out recently, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's very similar to that movie. It's good, though. It's good. It's all about the juror pool. All of them. It's very interesting. All right. So my pick is My Cousin Vinny.
Oh yeah.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. That's a good one. The great Bill Belichick quoted that during Deflategate, right? With the balls.
Did he really?
Deflating.
Wait, what did Belichick say?
It was the whole Mona Lisa veto when she's talking about I think it's the air in the tires or the air in the tires of the car. And Belichick did the same thing when he was getting grilled about Deflategate and the balls deflating. Oh, I should have had this quote ready.
That's an all-time monologue to Marissa Tomei, right?
Yeah,
when she's talking about the carburetors, the mufflers, the year and make
the
of the car.
Posi traction.
Yeah. With a great accent. She crushed that. She crushed that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Matt, we've kept you long enough. This is a download for me. I think what's interesting here, before I let you kind of, have people reach out, it feels like there's enough here to potentially have a class action against Steven Adams. I guess I'll pitch this to the audience. If you feel like you were wronged by this Bedard bounty, if the wrong was worth $1, if the wrong was worth $100,000, it's probably worth reaching out to Matt, and maybe there's something there that the legal system can do. So, Matt, if they do want to reach out to you about that, or maybe they have another gambling issue or something they want to discuss with you, what's the best way to find you?
Yeah, the best way to find me is through my website. So it's Bettor Lawyers, Bettor, as in Bettor, bettorlawyers.com.
Okay. Bettorlawyers.com, Bettor. Got it.
Yep.
Perfect. They'll find you there. He's not on Instagram like us weirdos, so you can't find him there. But this is great, Matt. Thank you so much for enlightening us. We may end up getting you back. I have a feeling this episode's going to do well.
Oh, I know. Yes. Thank you, Matt. It's great having you on.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Larry, for having me on. I appreciate it.
You got it.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.